Is this maliciousness? Is this incompetence? Like that stuff I will deal with privately. But I'm trying to paint you guys a picture of the circumstances that led this to happening.
And I view Project 2025 the same way, right? Where I think people are getting bogged down in the details of some particular ridiculous policy proposals, where if you actually go in and look at just well, here's our proposal for sort of reform of the bureaucracy as a whole, and then there's individual chapters on each of the executive departments, I think it would be really productive and useful to engage on those specific chapters and proposals, because to an extent...
Wait, mismanagement of funds.
I think a month or two, maybe 2 months ago, that my sponsorship money has not been paid out to me in a couple of years. And it was basically being used as float to make Offbrand's numbers look better than they were. And so when I found this out, I was like, oh, damn, the books here were a bit cooked. The books were cooked. Yes, sir. The books were cooked.
Wait, using float? I don't understand what he's saying.
And so when I found this out, and it was basically being used as float to make Offbrand's numbers look better than they were.
Make Offbrand's numbers look
And so
better.
when I found this out, I was like, oh, damn, the books here were a bit cooked. The books were cooked. Yes, sir. The books were cooked. I scammed myself. And then when me and the team did some digging, we were like, this hole is too deep. This hole is too deep. And if we keep digging in this hole, not only is Offbrand fucked, Mogul Moves is fucked. Everyone loses their job. I still have an ability to make money personally. So I'm obviously not as affected.
LeMayo, the mutations just lead to random antigens that get targeted by the immune system. People think it will cause cancer. Can RNA even mutate? I don't understand what that means. RNA just gets processed by the ribosome and then unzipped and eaten up. No? Wait, I don't understand what the fuck happened.
Was listening to the Iced Coffee Hour podcast. Do you even know how much money you make from the yard?
No.
That's crazy.
Is that real? I don't know how much I make. That's
insane.
This is from the old days too. He just never knew what the number in his account was.
I have a great idea.
It would be.
Wait, how many things does Ludwig run? Or how big is the Ludwig empire?
Criminally easy to steal from you.
Famously, I'm criminally easily
He explains it more after the Twitch clip.
I think a month or two, maybe 2 months ago. Still have an ability to make money personally. So I'm obviously not as affected, because I still have a viewer base. But just for some, relative idea of how bad it is.
He made a mogul mail on it.
A couple of years ago, I made a video on this channel called My Plan to Quit Streaming. And in that video, I talked about...
Does this go over the details, or I just want the details? I'm just curious on the details.
It's to the tune of about 3 mil. Ability to make money personally. So I'm obviously not as affected, because I still have a viewer base. But just for some, relative idea of how bad it is, it's to the tune of about 3 mil. That's the amount of money. Yeah, that's a lot of money. That's a lot of money. And so at that point, it's you have to act now or this situation gets a whole lot fucking worse, which is why this might feel quite sudden. Now, I'm not here to get into is this maliciousness? Is this incompetence? That stuff I will deal with privately. But I'm trying to paint you guys a picture of the circumstances that led this to happening in the timeline that it happened. Now, I think luckily, I genuinely do believe we have a pretty decent severance package and a very good plan for Offbrand games still to move forward. And also, the willingness and excitement from the team who is working at Offbrand games to make that business last. And a lot of confidence also in that business.
What is the Offbrand business account? What do they do there?
Fault, not even a little bit. The sponsors paid out. Yes, they did. It just never got to me. Aren't you pissed? No, I think I'm more sad. I think I'm more sad because, end of the day, I have the ability to look this shit over. So it's you feel a bit stupid if anything, right? I have the ability to do this. I've just focused so much on being the biggest streamer I can, running as many events as I can, making as much money as I can, that I didn't do the due diligence to maybe prevent this in the first place or fix it earlier. And and maybe it's like a bad trait, but like I hate so much the idea of focusing so much attention on like who fucked me or getting back what's mine, even though I joke about that a lot. Because I know if I put like 110% of my effort into like making that shit back or making more next year or making a fucking banger company with off-brand games and you know, making sure the people who fucked me just have no piece of it, like I'll be better off. You know, it's the same thing in like League, bro. And I know it's like stupid to make that analogy, but it's like, what is the best tilt? If you tilt about it, well, I'm already queued up. Focus on this next game. A-Net Offbrand, LD, Dan, Stans, Kelly. For those leaving us, I know you're not worth, and that doesn't rip. One that doesn't rip off game does in the process. I also want to share I was not asked to do. So anyway, shout out, and then hop into the meeting and be like the best person you could have in a meeting. It's like, how is he doing both? I'm confident that this like new leadership we have. First off, I don't think I have that much business sense. I think I just know what people like, because I think there are some people in the world who like the same thing. My business is delegating, but trusting the people that you delegate to. And when you delegate to the wrong people, you get a bit fucked. Here, we got a bit fucked.
Okay.
So anyway, that's it. That's the some of the tea behind it.
Some of the tea.
Yeah, but you make the money. I do make the money, and that's not to say I don't have a decision in some of.
It's before the clip.
No, nobody stole. It wasn't theft. It was just it was mismanagement. It was mismanagement. So I'm excited for a brighter future. Information here. Just let me like Discord and email. It directly links. Questions rolling because I'm sure everyone about how I started a company called without the mind of Germany. This super talented guy. But as far as like, you know, this means full-time German, that is for German to speak to, but it shouldn't fuck. Oh, okay. Just to get into like some nitty gritty. My money has been horribly managed over the past year to 2 years.
Okay.
And this transition of Offbrand is not just removing the production side, but also changing the leadership of these companies.
Okay.
Now we already have Aiden, who has stepped in as COO of Mogul Moves. But after Aiden stepped in, this man discovered a couple of things that were going a bit awry. Okay. Aiden's done a damn good job. Now, Aiden's not doing a bad job. Aiden's doing a great job. Aiden's genuinely like probably the most valuable human to me for my businesses on this earth.
Okay.
But basically, my job has been be big streamer dumbass, right? And I hire other people to deal with other things so I can be big streamer dumbass, because you know if I'm not live, I'm unable to produce money to keep the business running. Right? I have to be the coal for the engine, and to be the coal, I have to play league at a silver level. It is what it is. You know, other people have their jobs. That's my job. But Aiden found out through like a process of filling out, I think, his own personal taxes, that we hadn't paid taxes at Mogul Moves in like a couple of years. Like the taxes memes were real. I know. Again, I know. Sorry, that's an exaggeration. We didn't not pay for a couple of years, but we missed tax payments along the way during that stretch. Tax payments to the tune of like a few $100,000, right? And we're supposed to be paying taxes quarterly, not annually, quarterly, when you have a business of this size. And so the solution at that point is that we were going to, you know.
When he says missed tax payments, does he mean that he just like they paid late or that they didn't pay at all? Also, fuck paying quarterly, just pay annual. Eat the fine. It's like 0.1%. Fuck it.
Get some money, because the way I had it set
Don't
up
take tax advice from me though.
is that all of my sponsorship money would go through Offbrand. Okay, all my sponsorship money would go through Offbrand, and I would have like a certain percentage for the person who did the sale, and a certain percentage that would go to Offbrand itself. Think of it as like a little fund to keep everything rolling. Well, I found out literally, I think a month or two, maybe 2 months ago, that my sponsorship money has not been paid out to me in a couple years, and it was basically being used as float to make Offbrand's numbers look better than they were. And so when I found this out, I was like, oh damn, the books here were a bit cooked. The books were cooked, yes sir. The books were cooked. I scammed myself. And then when me and the team did some digging, we were like, this hole is too deep. This hole is too deep. And if we keep digging in this hole, not only is Offbrand fucked, Mogul Moves is fucked, everyone loses their job. I still have an ability to make money personally, so I'm obviously not as affected, you know, because I still have a viewer base. But just for some like relative idea of how bad it is, it's to the tune of about $3 million. That's the amount of money.
Of what?
Yeah. I still have an ability to make money personally, so I'm obviously not as affected, you know, because I still have a viewer base. But just for some like relative idea of how bad it is, it's to the tune of about $3 million. That's the amount of money. Yeah.
This is what I think happened, but I don't know. It's hard because he's not describing much. Also, he doesn't have to describe as much. This is his own business shit. I'm not like being critical of how much information he released or not. It's totally his prerogative to release things or not. It sounds like, I don't know if he has multiple businesses or if this is one business or what, but Ludwig exists as an individual entity. And then you have, so this is Ludwig, and then you have a company called Offbrand. Okay. Now, Offbrand, there's going to be way more to this, and I don't know it all, but Offbrand can probably pay money to Ludwig in two ways. You can do W-2, where you salary yourself, which is, I'm sure he takes a salary from his company. And then you can also just like withdraw disbursements or whatever. I don't know if there's a formal name for these or whatever. but you can take disbursements from your company as well, guessing that this company here, Offbrand, is an LLC. Okay, if this is a C corp with a more formalized corporate structure, then I don't know. That's outside of anything that I would know. I just wouldn't have the knowledge to know that. Oh, distributions, not disbursements, whatever. It sounds like what was happening was when Ludwig does a sponsor, what happens is the sponsor money goes into this account. It's paid to his business. And what he's used to doing is at the end of the year, I guess he just has somebody do this for him, or he just withdraws all the extra money and takes it in the form of basically a disbursement from his business, and it goes into his own account. Sounds like what's happening. But it sounds like he wasn't making those withdrawals, or that money wasn't being moved into his account. And so at the end of the year, he would look at the Offbrand account and go, oh, wow, these guys have like, $1 million sitting in this account. This business must be going well. If I think of like all of the income in and then all of the outlays out, right? Seems like this business is making money, when in reality, the business was basically being heavily subsidized by his own personal sponsorship deals. That's what it sounds like was going on. So the extra money sitting in this account is actually money that he was earning as an individual streamer from sponsors, and it was just sitting in this account not being taken by him, and he thought it was being made by the other people. But so in that case, he didn't really lose $3 million, and it doesn't sound like he was scammed by anybody, unless somebody was making an intentional accounting decision to keep this money there and not pay it out to him, which it doesn't sound like it. It just sounds like basically kind of an accounting error. So there was no money lost or no money stolen. He just thought that that this company had made more money. When he saw $3 million or whatever excess cash, by the end of a year or two or whatever, he's like, oh, damn, they've made $3 million. When in reality, oh shit, actually, this is my sponsor money. Fuck. Or even worse, maybe there was like $1 million sitting in this account, and $3 million of his sponsor money had been paid into that account that he didn't even get, basically. So it was either paid out in the form of wages, so W-2 pay maybe, 1099 pay maybe, or expensed for events or something else. And he thought that this business was running super profitably, when in reality it was being heavily subsidized by sponsor income that he was earning, and he wasn't aware of it. That's what it sounds like happened. But I mean, I can't know 100% obviously, so, but okay. I think it's more nefarious than that. Someone was literally redirecting money intended for Ludwig to inflate revenue. It sounds like they're... No. That doesn't sound like what was happening at all. It sounds like he said that he literally always gets paid sponsor money right into that account, which is, that's how I get paid. I always get paid in my Destiny.GG LLC business. So that makes sense. 6 months ago, I went into more detail about Offbrand. I'm supposed to go out to dinner in like 17 minutes, so I need to leave like fucking now.
Strap in, folks, because today I have some breaking news, a Mobile Mail exclusive scoop. Now, you guys know about a year ago, I made a company called Offbrand. And I made it with the goal of basically making events that I think are cool and also dope for myself. And when I retire, making events that are cool and also dope for other creators. And so far, that's worked great. A few months ago, we made the Dodgeball event, which was massive. And then a week ago, I made Fast 50, which was a speedrunning event that raised over $250,000. Dude, thank you so much for donating $250,000. Shit, that's a lot of money. But we don't just do events for me. We've done a couple events for other creators, like the Doug Shuffle-thon, which I think can only exist if you have Doug and Germa and Reynolds and all those motherfuckers who got like a gin and a vodka, except for with YouTubers, it's game publishing companies. But that would only make sense if I was doing this alone. And I'm not doing it alone. We have a new employee over at Offbrand who is the director of strategy at Offbrand Game.
I'm completely making shit up now, but I thought Ludwig ran this as a co-op, so if he was making more money than he was, I don't know if it's even possible, but...
The game publishing wing, and you might have seen this guy on your YouTube feed before. It's Pirate Software, aka Thor. This guy's fucking like the guy when it comes to game development YouTube. I get his shorts basically ad nauseum nonstop. I never skip a single one. His dad was the wild guy from South Park. He was like a fucking hacker. You know Thor. I don't know why I'm like telling you who he is, as if everyone doesn't already know and hasn't already seen all of his shorts. Anyway, Thor's a game dev, so basically every time we drop a game, not only will you have like that A24 feeling where like, okay, this game's good, Thor thought it was good, and also Ludwig plays it, so I guess that means something. But you know that the developers were treated right. And that's really important because there's been some controversy, I'm not naming names, recently with some publishers where they don't seem to have the devs' best interest in mind. They have the money in mind. And so with Thor on board, we are going to basically try to give a sample of approval where you can trust us. That's the goal, right? Now, wouldn't it make sense to announce a game publishing company without announcing like a game? It's kind of the whole point. And our first game is really fucking fire. I'm pumped to announce this. Rivals 2, baby. Let's go! If you haven't tried Rivals 2 in the beta yet, it is a...
Okay, I don't care.
Don't take this as a defense of Doge, okay?
No, you're good.
But that video you were watching earlier, I thought was interesting because, yeah, I mean, the whole premise of the Doge thing of like government efficiency and whatnot, I feel like reining in the administrative state could be a real fun goal for you lefties these days because, I mean, to me, the part of Project 2025 that everybody misses and isn't really talking about, like they talk about the random policy proposals, but I think the thing that's really interesting, obviously, is the plan to like fully staff an administrative state that they want to, be more directly in control of the president, right? They want to remove some of these checks that we have now that give the president political influence over certain offices. But to an extent, the proposals that some people have to reform the administrative state have been, or should be, I guess, like Democratic talking points to an extent as well, right? That everybody kind of agrees that the bureaucracy is not as actually merit-based as we want it to be, and there are questions of how we can fix that. And so the point that kind of propaganda video you're watching was making was like, well, most laws aren't really laws from Congress. They're things that are passed by regulators, which is true. And the question is to what extent we should be worried about that, and how bloated that is. To what extent is it worrying, for example, when a Trump gets into office and maybe has means to directly get his fingers in the policymaking and bypass Congress in so many of these ways, right? Like, I feel like that could be a fun lefty tack that I would like to see you guys hop onto.
Yes. I think that you've heard of the country of Israel, right? Mm-hmm. I think
Once or
that
twice.
Israel having defense against like rockets or maybe even missiles in the form of the Iron Dome thing, that's probably an important thing for that country. I don't know if I would break bread with a guy who watched First Contact, a million times, or Close Encounters of the Third Kind, or whatever the fuck that movie's called, and then wants to have a talk about like air defense. Like,
Oh, sure.
I think that there are intensely interesting conversations to be had around. Well, I mean, they would have fallen under the Chevron stuff, right? Over like how much deference should be given. Now the answer is zero, but like how much deference should be given to the administration, the executive, in terms of interpreting implementation of congressional statute. But one, Elon and Trump don't know anything about how any of the government works, so I automatically am not interested in their input. And two, none of the people that are promoting that video have any idea about how the government works or what any of that means. So I'm also not interested in the conversation that will stem from that, especially given the ultimately ironic point that like the XKCD comic on standards, where it's like, oh, like I'm going to fix these 7 standards by uniting them with my new standard, and now you just have 8 standards. Their solution to the bureaucratic state is to create another unelected bureaucratic body to be a check on the bureaucratic state. So all that to say, like in principle, all that to say, just to summarize, in principle, I do agree with you. I think it could be an intensely interesting conversation, but not with these people. I think, yeah.
Yeah, I guess I wouldn't say you need to break bread with these people because I don't think their proposals are serious. I think you're right. Like I used to enjoy watching Rand Paul does this Festivus every year where he does the ridiculous, here's the ridiculous studies that the government funded thing. I used to enjoy that until I sort of realized sort of how this stuff actually works. And anyways, as you've pointed out a couple of times, the things that Elon is interested in cutting aren't going to get anywhere near his proposed $2 trillion thing. I view it more as like a springboard of conversations that do need to happen. And I view Project 2025 the same way, right? Where I think people are getting bogged down in the details of some particular ridiculous policy proposals, where if you actually like go in and look at just like, well, here's our proposal for sort of reform of the bureaucracy as a whole, and then there's individual chapters on each of the executive departments, I think it would be really productive and useful to engage on those specific chapters and proposals. Like, because to an extent, they go through this pretty well. The concluding chapter of the first section of Project 2025 goes through and is like, well, actually, like some of the things we're putting on the table are like Obama era proposals or like Carter era proposals. And these are things that everybody was on board with for a while. So let's talk about those. I realize it's kind of an unserious presentation, but I think it could be a more productive conversation as a springboard, not like a point of unity, right? I don't think people on your side are ever going to, break bread with Elon and Vivek. Like this is not going to happen.
Sure. So, I mean, real quick, give me the, which part? You said the conclusion of the first section. Is this like? Yeah,
this is the Central Personnel Agencies Managing the Bureaucracy chapter. It's the third chapter in the document. Okay. The full document. If you go to the conclusion of that, they kind of sum it up pretty well. Which is actually no, it's the I'm looking for the exact section I'm thinking of. How they propose handling reductions in force, how they propose making the bureaucracy less impenetrable. I'm not saying their actual proposals are necessarily correct. I'm saying they actually do, I think, lay it out in interesting ways. They're like, oh, this is something we could actually discuss and argue about. Again, I think Trump is telling the truth when he says he's never read it, because Trump is never sitting down and reading a 900-page document. I think the people who wrote this probably have some interesting proposals that even more left-leaning scholars of public admin might think, that's probably a pretty good proposal. And so I was just pulling up recently, like there's this article I might send you by Donald Kettle, who's like a scholar of administrative law and policy, and he gets to the end of it and basically is like, yeah, we all kind of agree that merit system as it exists has problems. It's not really actually merit based in the ways we want it to be. We just have to be careful how we fix it. And so I don't know. I just see it as more of a springboard that could be productive rather than like. So one other thing to the DOGE, like and the unelected bureaucrats. Regulating the unelected bureaucrats. I think that's, man, DOGE is being created, as I understand it, as one of these executive advisory boards, which
Yeah.
I think are really interesting things. Like they can be used in really cool ways. One of my favorite ones that popped up in the Bush administration was the President's Council on Bioethics. Very cool stuff came out of that. So presidents can use the money they've got in the executive office of the presidency to do some really cool stuff. And I feel like this actually could have been cool if it wasn't such a meme. Like if it literally wasn't like a meme coin and a meme of a program, it could have been so cool. But
Yeah, I don't disagree with you conceptually, okay? And I have to leave soon or else I would probably be screaming and fighting with you more virulently.
Oh, no, that's fine.
Okay. But the issue I have is that, like, if you want to approach cutting down some of these federal agencies, and when I listen to you speak, not you personally, but if I listen to a person speak, it sounds like they have a genuine goal or desire to do that, then I would take it more seriously. But when it's the same empty promises of like, we're going to cut waste and we're going to make it more efficient and we're going to get rid of wasteful spending and then we're going to improve the efficiency and then we're going to cut, and it's like, okay, this is like nothing, right? You're not like, it doesn't sound like you're saying anything of meaning or substance. I've never in my life heard either of these people talk about anything meaningful or with substance. And it feels like more what's happening is people are looking at these agencies and they're talking about reforms that in $100 billion agency, like would maybe save you $50 million. But they're promising like $50 billion of cuts. And it's like, well, hold on. What we're really talking about and what nobody really wants to deal with is everybody likes federal spending. They like what it does to the constituents, that people get money from the government for a variety of reasons. They like what it does to the economy because it energizes your economy. It increases the amount of total goods and services produced. And they don't want to take anything away from that. So you get these empty promises of people saying that they want to cut government spending, but they don't really. They just want to say it and get credit for it because Donald Trump was in office for 4 years. He had a thriving economy and he increased the deficit. He didn't do anything to cut government spending at all. Like, so what's going on there? Yeah.
There's an interesting part in that chapter, that third chapter, that actually, it's very soft criticism of Trump, but it says like one of the sort of paradoxes of trying to fix the administrative state is you like short-term reduction in force can end up having costing you more in the long run because you end up like, force people into retirement and you pay out their pensions and stuff. And it ends up creating a budget bloat rather than actually saving you any money. So they're softly critical of some things that Trump did in the sense that he cut a bunch of things and then didn't actually present a pathway to like long-term budget cuts. So I think you're right. And yeah, I mean, the fact that they bluster about these, like, a couple $100,000 study here and there, a couple $1 million study here and there, it's ridiculous. Like how many thousands of these studies can you fund before we've even touched the number that we actually care about? So yeah, I mean, all of this stuff I think is very complicated. It's beyond me, honestly, to dig into the details of each of these departments and what could actually be better done. But I think it could be, again, productively used as a springboard, not like a, well, let's cross the aisle and we can have good conversations with DOGE people, but like, yeah, like, they're on the right track and here's why you find this appealing, but here's how it could actually be done, sort of thing.
Sure. I think another issue too is that, like, I just think that for depressing reasons or non-depressing reasons, I don't know, these conversations are just kind of like beyond the average American because the average American just doesn't really know how our government works at all. Like the average American just truly doesn't know. Like if you were to ask, like, what's the difference between a law and a rule? I would guess less than 10% of Americans could even tell you where each of these things come from, let alone like what they are. So if you live in an environment where people don't know what any of it is, then like it doesn't, like, how do you begin to have that conversation? Like technically today, I would argue, I don't think I would argue this. I think I would say it's definitionally true that now more than ever in a post-Chevron world, in a post-Chevron world, I think, because now we've gotten rid of the Chevron doctrine. Yes. Now more than ever, if you want to do spending cuts or reduce administrative bloat, it's probably more important than ever that it comes from Congress, because now the executive branch has even less freedom for interpreting congressional statute, right? So whatever the judiciary says basically has to go. But I don't think people are even aware of like the relationship between the between Congress and what the federal government does as an executive. It doesn't seem like with that video
No,
opening saying like
absolutely not.
all of we're ruled by rules and not congressional laws. And I was like, well, where do you think the rules come from? Like, I don't think anybody even is aware of that. Yeah.
Yeah, I do think there's. I mentioned this the conversation we had after Wick's thing that I think there's a legitimate question of the kind of power the executive is claiming to rule make under the statutes that Congress has passed. Like there are times when it's like pretty obvious. Yeah, Congress is giving you like this kind of authority. We passed the Clean Air Act, and here's the sorts of things we want you to do, and so you deal with the specifics of that. And all of that, I think, is going to hold up even under the new post Chevron world, right? Like that stuff is pretty clear. Like the Clean Air Act says we want you to do these sorts of things. Here's the kind of things that you can do, and DOE or the EPA says, yeah, like this is how we're doing it. I think it's an interesting question though, like what actual in principle limits there should be on the power of Congress to delegate that power. And this is why I would love to see the non-delegation doctrine get resurrected, but I'm not, I don't know what the court will do with that. But, to say, well, actually, like the executive has been granted too much authority and there should be more direct oversight from Congress in this and that areas.
You're referring specifically to the fact that Congress is like, I'm making this up, but basically, in your world, Congress would say, we've created an office. This is like the office of printing a poster that says the number 3, and the federal government's going to go print the number 3. But Congress actually has the ability to say, we are going to authorize the president to post any number between 1 and 9, and it's up to the executive to choose what that is. And you're saying that, Congress has been allowed to grant, I guess what some people would argue, there's a name for this conceptually, but they're giving powers of the Congress away to the federal government, to the executive by giving them too much leeway in statutory interpretation, kind of, right? Or basically,
yeah, in a way, it's not even necessarily leeway. It's like the non-delegation doctrine is like this. It's an intuition and a principle about government that says like there is one body that is supposed to make law being the things that you can enforce with penalties up to and including death is how Locke says it, right? And that's the legislative body that is actually representative. Now, obviously, when it comes time to carry out the law, you give prerogative to the executive. You give them some latitude in interpretation and application. But to the extent, if this is true, like you can argue about it, but if it's true that Congress has effectively given away the power of legislation to this other branch, then something has gone wrong. And so there's only a couple Supreme Court cases where they've actually used this as a legal principle to say, no, this is too far. The executive can't do this thing that it's claiming under that statute. It's in Youngstown, and it's in one other case that I always forget. And so it's not been used as like a strike down an executive action for quite some time, like 7 decades. But it exists to say like Congress is supposed to actually write the law, and to the extent the executive is claiming the power to make law or run afield of what Congress has authorized them to do, or if Congress authorizes them to do too much, we can come in and say, actually, no, like something's out of whack here. So.
Sure. Do you think that when you look at this first section, and I just skimmed it, I'm going by what you've told me, but apparently they talk a lot about like merit and the ability to evaluate the performance of a particular person. Do you think, and maybe you can argue that, well, these people shouldn't necessarily be merit-based, but do you think that any of Trump's cabinet so far would pass any of these merit-based criteria?
Well, so I mean, the cabinet is going to be a political appointee as distinct from merit. The merit-based positions they're talking about are these sort of like mid-level to senior-level bureaucrats within these, maybe you start off as a low-level civil servant, you've been promoted for decades, and now you're like a senior-level bureaucrat, have a huge hand in the running of these things, and your continued employment and status and promotion and bonuses and things is theoretically based on merit. One of the things that they talk about is there have been several scandals over the years, like in the VA, for example, where people who were merit-based appointments, who were supposed to get, merit-based promotions and raises, it was found they're fudging their numbers. They're saying the wait times are lower than they are, making things up so that they can get those merit-based promotions and raises. And so something is broken in the sense that we're not actually keen for merit the way that we want to. And they actually, again, it's soft praise, but there's some praise of some like Obama era reforms that were instituted. I forget which positions they were for, but they say that Obama instituted one kind of test where it wasn't just like a sort of broad civil service test. It was like, here's a multiple choice test. There are right answers. And if you don't get the right answers, you're not getting this job. Those sorts of things is what they're thinking of for these merit-based appointments, which I, again, like, I feel like should be fairly bipartisan to say like, yeah, we probably actually want the best people in here. But if we're just going based on merit, the Trump cabinet slate is just awful. Oh man, I got so excited when Rubio was the first pick announced, and I was like, okay, not crazy, like maybe he's going for normalcy, and then it went all off the rails after that. That was it's been a wild, been a wild couple months.
Do you think that is Project 2025? I'm guessing they're also against that thing of like private public sector crossover, or Like people leaving government to go work for the private sector? And then my next question is going to be, is that going to hurt your ability to hire based on merit if people think they can't get a job after working for the government?
That's a great question. I'm not entirely sure because I know one of their proposals is like decentralizing and privatizing a lot of stuff that some of these agencies do now. They think like so right now, people don't realize this all the time, but right now we have a pretty mixed system where a lot of these federal programs are really implemented effectively at the state level, right? So food stamps is federal money, but if I'm in Tennessee, so if I want food stamps, I go to the Tennessee Department of Health and Human Services, not the federal government Department of Health and Human Services.
Yeah.
And so they would prefer more of these things to be decentralized and managed by the states, even if it's federally funded. And beyond that, would prefer more of these things really just be in private hands. So I don't know about the sort of revolving door stuff. I'm sure they talk about it. I bet I could control F revolving door and find some stuff, but I haven't read that far in it. I haven't made it all the way through the 1,000 pages. But I know one of their big criticisms is this, like a combination of, that revolving door between public and private employment, and then just what is called in the bureaucracy or policy circles, this iron triangle relationships between special interest, congressional committees, and executive agencies, that they're all sort of feeding into each other and doing things that are best for them, not necessarily for the constituents. So it all gets really complicated really fast. This is not my specialty by any means, and it's not like I have like a good policy proposal. I think there's a productive conversation to be had that starts with this, but I think you're right that it would involve drawing some lines. It's like, okay, like Elon is not the person that's going to fix the executive branch after all these years. Like everybody's wanted to do it, and Elon's certainly not the person who's going to do it.
Yeah. I mean, this has been like one of my chief complaints for the past like fucking 5 years, is that I think that there are a lot of interesting questions that you could have over structure of government and just a whole bunch of things, but like it's just impossible to have those conversations now. Like, like I would never have a conversation about cutting bureaucratic bloat or changing like fundamentally like administrative or like executive functions with somebody who, thinks that like the government did 9/11 and January 6th and October 7th and makes hurricanes. Like it's just not like this.
Right. No, absolutely not. Sorry, I shouldn't have. I thought I closed chat, but I saw someone say this guy's for Project 25. I'm not. I'm saying it's a good springboard for conversation. Like I think within some of the individual chapters there are interesting proposals that are worth talking about. I do not support Project 2025. I'm an anti-MAGA kind of person. So.
Sure. Okay. Well, anything else?
No, that's I thought the video was interesting, and so I think I'd like to see productive conversation where conversation is not productive most of the time. So
all right, we'll have fun.
All right, I appreciate it.
Yep.
Bye. Thanks.